Hey guys, welcome to episode number 442. Today is Monday, so it's Update Monday, and today I wanted to focus on the 300-gallon stock tank. This system has come a very long way from where it started a few years ago. Most notably, I'm really happy with the way the filtration system turned out recently when we completely upgraded that system. And now I would like to turn my focus to the inside of the tank itself and decorating this so that it sort of reaches its fullest potential. I've talked about this briefly in the past, how I'm not super thrilled with the decoration and or lack thereof of this tank. And I would like to spend a little time and invest a little bit of money in making this thing look as good as it certainly could. Now, I will talk about a few things that I do like about this tank, and then we'll talk about a few things that I would like to change. First up, I think this basking log is really cool and really unique. It's a very large piece of wood. It's relatively flat, and it's got a pretty nice shape to it. And it's something that can support all of my turtles easily, all at the same time. And I think that's really cool, a really interesting feature piece of wood, and I'm super happy that I have that as a centerpiece to this tank. The things that I'm not super thrilled about are things like this lily planter tub or the milk crate that's down below it, even though that is the favorite hangout spot of all of the fish and turtles in this tank. I'm also not super thrilled about the plastic boxwood. All of these things are things that aren't super natural, and they're things that I would like to remove from the system at some point, maybe sooner rather than later. But I need something to replace them with. A few updates that we've had to this system are adding some live plants, notably pothos. This is the marble queen variety. I think that's just a fancy name for like a variegated pothos. It's got both the green and the white shades to it, and I just have that planted for the time being in this what was supposed to be a nesting box, but is now flooded, as we've talked about in the past. Once these start growing a little bit, I might transplant them and put them into the back side of the fry rack, so that the roots are submerged in the gutter system. I think that would be a neat little thing to add to that system. I want to add a little bit of greenery to the fish room, which I think will help considerably. Another addition of late is a piece of driftwood. This is one that I collected about 6 months ago during the summer. It's been sitting outside. It completely dried out. I blasted it with water a few times. It has survived through the winter months, and it basically froze solid. And as soon as the snow melted, I grabbed it and threw it right in the tank. Not really a boiling kind of guy, especially not with big, awkward pieces of driftwood like this. But I do know that it has been exposed to extreme elements, and it's been out of the lake for long enough that anything that was in it is most certainly dead. I haven't noticed any problems with that at all. So anyways, I do have some Malaysian driftwood on the bottom. I do have some white play sand on the bottom. It's actually a mixture of crushed coral and play sand, and I think those things are fine, but this whole system lacks aquascape, right? It lacks mojo. It's big, it's impressive, it's full of stuff, but it's in no way cohesive. It in no way represents any sort of biotope. There's a lot of potential, especially with this much space, to create something that is truly inspiring to sort of sit down and look upon from up top. And it's not quite there. It's actually a long ways off, but I have a vision, and I think that is going to start with potentially a Universal Rocks background. Now, we just brought on Universal Rocks as a sponsor of my aquarium box, and I'm super excited to bring you guys a discount code for Universal Rocks. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for that. If you guys don't know, Universal Rocks, it's a company that Jay Wilson has been talking about for a very long time. They make basically pond surrounds and spa surrounds, pool surrounds. They also have a full line of 3D backgrounds for aquariums, and they have a lot of really cool, basically artificial rock products. And I don't think that they've done this before, but it is something that I would like to work with them on here, perhaps in the coming months, would be a 360-degree wrap-around background for the inside of the stock tank. I'm not quite sure how expensive that would be. I'm not quite sure if that's something that can even be pulled off, especially because you've got some really funky contours with the inside lip of the Rubbermaid stock tank. But just picture this for a minute. All of the black walls that you see here would basically be replaced with a rocky 3D background. And I'm not talking about the styrofoam 3D backgrounds or the concrete Drylock 3D backgrounds. I've done those in the past. I've done them with turtles. You guys have probably seen my 125 build with those products, and it all fell apart. I mean, the turtles have claws, and eventually that stuff gets ripped apart, makes a giant mess, and I'm not interested in going down that road again. But Universal Rocks, it's a flexible background. It's basically one solid piece. It's nearly indestructible. If you crush it, I think it basically regains its shape. So it's something that could be molded along the inside of all of these walls, and that might form the start or the foundation for an aquascape or for a biotope inside of an aquarium like this. So imagine we start with that, a 3D background that goes 360 degrees all the way around. It comes with its challenges, obviously, the size of it, installing it, the ridges, like I said, the dead spots that would occur back behind. There'd be dead water that would sort of be sitting back behind. All of those things would need to be addressed before actually tackling something like that. But imagine that was in place in this tank. Then I rip out all of the stuff that's not really natural, like the floating boxwood, like the lily planter box, like the milk crate, and then I can get really creative. We have some really good contacts and some really good aquascaping supply companies now with my aquarium box, and it might be something where I could buy a whole bunch of rock or a whole bunch of really large pieces of driftwood and make something towards the middle of this tank that would be really cool, really unique, and really natural looking, and that might be able to fill the space in with something that actually looks good, and would be worth essentially looking at. From there, I've got my grow lights up here, but they are fairly high up. I might be able to drop those down a little bit, replace the bulbs because they're a couple years old, and then I might be able to look at planting the substrate. It would probably require me getting new substrate, or at least getting a thicker bed of substrate, and then finding some plants that the turtles wouldn't absolutely destroy. And that might be the biggest challenge. It's sort of a similar challenge to planting a cichlid tank. They just tear everything up, and turtles do just the same thing. But I might be able to find some plants that I can tie to driftwood, some plants that have really deep root systems that might do okay. And if the turtles decide to leave them alone, maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to plant some live plants in this tank as well. So anyways, that's the grand vision for this tank. Who knows how long it will take to accomplish that vision, but I think it's a starting place, and I think it's certainly possible at some point, and I think doing all of those things would transform this tank into a tank full of, from a tank full of stuff into an actual aquascaped biotope type looking tank. And I think that's what it really needs. It needs to look good from the top down, and I think if I do all of those things, it would be well on its way to that. So anyways, guys, that's the grand vision for the 300-gallon stock tank. Let me know if you guys have any ideas or any ways that you think I can accomplish some of those things. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.